Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about exponents and multiplication. We're going to simplify. Your answer should contain only positive exponents. So, if I was given this problem,
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.
4 squared times 4 squared. Well, we have the same base, which is 4. So when we multiply that together, our base stays the same, and we add the exponents, okay, with multiplication there. So 2 and 2 add to be 4, and so my final answer is just 4 to the 4th power. 4 times 4 to the 2nd power, okay, or 4 squared. Well, we have the same base here, and well, this 4 is by itself, but we can imagine it has a first power. That's really what's there. So when we have the same base, we keep that base down there, the 4. The exponents, when we have multiplication between the two numbers, the exponents are added, and 1 plus 2 is 3. And so my final answer is 4 to the 3rd power. 3 squared times 3 squared. Well, we have the same base here, and when we have the same base, we need to add the exponents when we multiply between these two. So the base is the same, which is 3, and 2 plus 2 is 4, and so our final answer is 3 to the 4th power. 2 times 2 squared times 2 squared. The first thing I notice here is all of these terms that we're multiplying had the same base, which is 2. The first one doesn't have an exponent written, but we know it's to the 1st power there. Since we have the same base being multiplied in a sense across, we know our final answer will have that base of a 2. Okay? Now we have to add the exponents. When we have multiplication, we add the exponents when the base is the same. 1 plus 2 is 5. And so our final answer is 2 to the 5th power. 2 n to the 4th power times 5 n to the 4th power. We're multiplying these two terms. So we first look at the coefficients, 2 and 5. That being multiplied, 2 times 5 is a 10. Now let's look at the letters, or the variables. N to the 4th and n to the 4th. Same base as n right there. And when they're being multiplied, we add the exponents. 4 plus 4 is 8. And so my final answer is 10n to the 8th power. 6r times 5r squared. Okay? Well, we first look at the coefficients. 6 times 5 is 30. So we have 30 here. Now we have to deal with the variables. Remember, this r is to the 1st power. When we have the same base, r to the 1st power times r to the 2nd power, that base stays there, but we add the exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3, and so my final answer is 30r cubed. 2 n to the 4th power times 6n to the 4th. First thing, I look at my coefficients. 2 times 6 is a 12. Okay? Now we look at the variables. Same base, n for both of them, and we multiply variables with the same base, we add the exponents. 4 plus 4 is an 8, so it's n to the 8th power, so my final answer is 12n to the 8th power. 6k squared times k. Well, when we multiply these together, the coefficient in front of the second k is just a 1. We multiply the coefficients first. 6 times 1 is just a 6. Now we look at the variables. Well, k by itself here is really k to the 1st power. When we multiply variables in the same base here, we keep that base of a k, but we can add the exponents. 2 plus 1 is 3, and so now my final answer is just 6k cubed. 5b squared times 8b. All right? Well, we first have to multiply the coefficients. That's 5 and an 8. 5 times 8 is 40. Now let's look at the variables, b squared and b. Well, b is really to the first power right there. And we multiply variables that are same. That base stays the same, which coincidentally is a b. Okay? And now we add the exponents. 2 plus 1 is 3. And so my final answer is 40 times b cubed. 4x squared times 3x. Well, what we want to do first is multiply the coefficients. 4 times 3 is 12. Now let's look at the variables. We have x squared times x. When we just have the variable by itself, x, it's the same thing as to the first power if nothing's written. When they have the same base and we're multiplying, we keep the variable x, but we add the exponents. 2 plus 1 is 3. And so my final answer is 12x to the third power. 6x times 2x squared. First thing I want to do is look at the coefficients. I need to multiply them. 6 times 2 is 12. Now let's look at the variables. Well, this x right here is really x to the first power. When we have the same base for both of them, which we do, it's an x, we need to add the exponents. So 1 plus 2 is 3. And now our final answer is just 12x to the third power. 6x times 6x to the third power. I first want to look at my coefficients. We have 6 and 6. 6 times 6 is 36, so that goes down here. Now we need to multiply the variables. Well, x by itself is the same thing as x to the first power. Since the base for both of these are x's, we keep the x down here, and when we multiply them, we add the exponents. 1 plus 3 is a 4. And so my final answer is 36x to the fourth power. 7 v to the third power times 10 u to the third power times v to the fifth power times 8 u v to the third power. All right? So let's don't get scared here. When we multiply all of these out, we need to first look at the coefficients, 7, 10, and 8. Well, 7 times 10 times 8 is 560. So we have 560 here, and now we've dealt with our coefficients. So let's look at the next variable, v. V can only be combined with other v's, and we're multiplying them. All we have to do is add the exponents. So we have v to the third power, v to the fifth power, and v to the third power. 3 plus 3 is a 6, plus 5 is 11. So we have v here to the 11th power. Next variable I see, well, I'm done with the first term. Second term, I see a u. I have a u to the third power and one u here. So that u can be written as u to the first power. So the variable here for u, when we multiply it, u to the third times u to the first, we add the exponents again, and 3 plus 1 is 4. And so my final answer is 560 v to the 11th power, u to the fourth power. 9 x y squared times 9 x to the fifth power y squared. All right. I first look at my coefficients, 9 and 9. 9 times 9 is an 81. Now we need to multiply the variables. First one I see here is an x, and we have an x there. Since they have the same base that we can combine or multiply, we add the exponents. Remember, the first one is just x to the first power. X here now, well, 1 plus 5 is 6, so we have x to the sixth power down here. Last variable is the y. All right, y squared times y squared. Again, we add the exponents. 2 plus 2 is 4. And so my final answer is 81 x to the sixth power times y to the fourth power. 6 m to the third power, n to the third power, times 8m squared times n to the third power. Well, the first thing I look at is my coefficient. I have 6 and I have an 8. Well, 6 times 8 is a 48. I have now finished with my coefficients and have to deal with the variables. M is the first variable, and we can only multiply like variables. M times the m, right? Look at the bases. Well, m to the third power times m squared, we add the exponents, is m to the fifth power. 3 plus 2 is 5. Lastly, let's deal with the variable n. Well, we have n to the third times n to the third. Again, we add the exponents. 3 plus 3 is 6. And so my final answer is 48m to the fifth power times n to the sixth power. 6x squared times 6x to the third power, y to the fourth power. Well, first I look at the coefficients. We have 6 and 6. I multiply them together, and 6 times 6 is 36. Next variable I see is an x. We can only multiply like variables. X squared times x to the third. Well, we look at the exponents and we add them. 2 plus 3 is 5, so it's x to the fifth power. We're done with the first term, and the second term has a y in it. So there's no other y to multiply, so we just bring down y to the fourth power, and now we're done. Final answer, 36x to the fifth power, y to the fourth power. 7u squared v to the fifth power times a 9u v to the third power. Okay? Well, first thing I want to do is I look at the coefficients and I multiply them. 7 times 9, we have a 63 here. Next, I look at my variables. First variable I see is a u, and we have a u here and a u there. But the second one, right, when there's no exponent, we know it's to the first power. When we multiply variables with the same base, we add the exponents. So u squared times u to the first is u to the 2 plus 1, which is 3. Now the v's. V to the fifth and v to the third power. Same principle applies. And when you multiply them, 5 times v to the fifth times v to the third, 5 plus 3 is an 8. And so my final answer is 63 u to the third power times v to the eighth power. U times v multiplied by 4u v to the fifth power. First thing with this is I look at the coefficients. Now, I see a 4 here, but there's nothing written for the first term. When there's nothing written, we know there's an imaginary 1 that's out in front. Okay? So 1 times 4 is just 4. Alright, pretty simple. Next, I see the variable u. And again, when used by itself, or a variable by itself, we know it has the exponent of 1. Alright, and we see that here as well. Okay? U times u, right, a variable times itself, variable, right, u times u, we add the exponents. Well, 1 plus 1 is 2. Next variable I see is a v. Same principle applies, v to the first power here. V to the first times v to the fifth. Again, we add the exponents. 1 plus 5 is 6. And so my final answer is 4u squared times v to the sixth power. 10x y to the third power times 8x to the fifth power y to the third power. Alright? Well, first thing I look at is my coefficients. I need to multiply them. 10 times 8 is an 80, so put that down there. Now we worry about the variables. So, first variable is x. When it's just by itself, we know it's x to the first power. X to the first power times x to the fifth power. Again, we can only multiply like terms. We keep the base the same, and we add the exponents. 1 plus 5 is 6. Lastly, we see the variable y. Again, y to the third times y to the third. We add the exponents, and 3 plus 3 is 6, giving us our final answer, 80 x to the sixth power times y to the sixth power. 3 u to the fourth power, v to the fifth power. and that's going to be multiplied by 7u squared times v to the third power. All right? First thing, I look at the coefficients. We have a 3 and a 7. When we multiply them, 3 times 7 is 21. Now, the variables. U is the first one I see, and we multiply variables only by their like terms, like variables. So u's get multiplied to u's, and when we do that, u to the fourth times u squared comes out to be, well, we add the exponents when it's multiplication. 4 plus 2 is 6. Lastly, we look at the last variable, v. We have v to the fifth times v to the third. Again, we add the exponents, and 5 plus 3 is 8, giving us our final answer, 21u to the 6th power, v to the 8th power. 2x squared to the 2nd power. Okay? Well, remember, all of this is to the 2nd power. Okay? And so what happens is when we have something to an exponent, right, in the parentheses, to the exponent, that exponent gets distributed to both parts inside that are being multiplied together, right? So when I bring that in, this becomes 2 to the 2nd power times, and it's x to the 2 times 2 power. When we bring it in, it's being multiplied, okay? And remember, it's really, well, or it's 2 to the 1st power right there, right? And 2 times 1 is 2. Now we can simplify this. 2 squared, right, is a 4. And x to the 2 times 2 power, well, 2 times 2 is 4. That's x to the 4th power. And there we have our final answer, 4x to the 4th power. We have p to the 4th power, and all of that is raised to the 4th power again. When we have something like this, raised to a whole thing in a parenthesis, raised to an exponent, that exponent gets multiplied back in. So, in doing so, p to the 4th all to the 4th power is the same thing as p to the 4th times 4. We multiply those exponents. 4 times 4 is 16, and so my final answer is p to the 16th power. We have k to the 3rd power, and all of that is raised to the 4th power. Okay? When we have a variable to an exponent and all of that raised to another exponent, when we combine them, we just have to multiply the exponents. So, k to the 3rd all to the 4th power is the same thing as k to the 3 times 4 power. Okay? 3 times 4 is 12, so my final answer is k to the 12th power. We have 7k. All of that is raised to the 2nd power. Okay? So one thing we want to look at here is, remember, 7 is really 7 to the 1st power, and k is k to the 1st power, if you can see that there. When we raise all of that to another exponent to the 2nd power, this exponent gets multiplied to each of the exponents on the inside. Okay? So 7 to the 1st is, and then we square that, is 7 to the 1 times 2. Okay? K to the 1st power is k times 1 times 2. So we brought that squared in. Okay, and well, what do we have? Well, 7 to the 1 times 2 is just 7 squared. And k to the 1 times 2 is k squared. 7 squared is 49. And let's bring down the k squared. And so my final answer here is just 49k squared. We have x squared all to the 3rd power. Okay? Well, one thing we do here, when we have a variable to the exponent, all that to another exponent, we multiply these exponents. So x squared all to the 3rd power is the same thing as x to the 2 times 3 power. Now 2 times 3 is 6, so my final answer is just x to the 6th power. We have 2b squared all to the 4th power. Okay? Well, what I want to do is take this exponent, and it gets multiplied to both parts within the parenthesis. Now remember, 2 is really 2 to the 1st power. Okay? So we multiply these exponents out. So this becomes 2 to the 1 times 4 power multiplied by b to the 2 times 4 power. Okay? Now let's simplify. Well, 1 times 4 is 4, so we have 2 to the 4th power here. And b, well, 2 times 4, the exponents, is an 8. Now 2 to the 4th power, we can simplify as 16. Bring down just the b to the 8th power. And there we have our final answer, 16b to the 8th power.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. MinuteMathTutor.com.